Well, welcome back to those of you who joined us last week, and welcome, Karen. I am Alyse McConnell, and my company is Think Well Workplace Enrichment Coaching. And this conversation we're going to be in today has a lot to do with the workplace, and I suspect is what has you here primarily, or at least that's how it was advertised. But I would invite you to use the opportunity of the time you've carved out to also look at all the domains of your life and what's happening. We spent a lot of time last time talking about intention and commitment and completion. And I assert you have intentions in every area of your life, even if they're not fully named and articulated. You have intentions about the kind of relationship you want to have with your significant other. You have intentions around the kind of parent you want to be. You have intentions around how your home environment, car environment, work environment best serves you. And I say it with that sort of wacky language, best serves you, because there really isn't a right wrong. Like, some of us like to live in a certain amount of clutter. That serves us. There isn't a good way, like this setup is the best way because Martha Stewart said so. It's what serves you, what supports you. Because when you're living in environments that don't support you, it's an energy leak. And we're going to spend some time talking about energy today and its relationship to making next year be the most powerful 2014 that you could possibly imagine. So it's in that imagining place that I'd like you to, we had asked at the end of last time that you come today with some preparation around what is your vision for 2014. And so the degree to which you got that done, it's fine. Like, however you're showing up, like, the most important thing is that you showed up. You got another 45 minutes to put some thought and energy around this. So however it is, you coming in shooting all over yourself about that you should be farther along, or you should have done more, or you should take that out of the space, because it doesn't have any it's not going to help you be more powerful and effective in this room in this next 45 minutes. So last week I mentioned a video about the jelly beans, and I thought it might be a nice place for us to start. It's just a couple of minutes. So we'll see if we can get this to work. The computer wasn't cooperating.
These are roughly 28,835 jelly beans. I counted out 500 of them and used those to weigh the rest. In this pile, there's one jelly bean for each day that the average American will live. You might have more beans in your life, or maybe less, but on average, this is the time we have. Here's a single bean. It's your very first day, a special day, a kind of rough day on everyone involved. Add 364 more and you have the first year of your life. Now, for a sense of scale, here are your first 15 years, 5,475 days, which brings us to the threshold of adulthood. And at that moment, this is the time that we have left. And this is, on average, what we will do with all that time. We will be asleep for a total of 8,477 days. If we're lucky, some of that time we'll be sleeping next to someone we love. We will be in the process of eating, drinking, or preparing food for 1,635 days. We'll be at work, hopefully doing something satisfying, for the equivalent of 3,202 of those days. 1,099 days will be spent commuting or traveling from one place to another, maybe a little bit more if you live in LA. On average, we will watch television in one form or another for a total of 2,676 days. Household activities, like chores and tending to our pets and shopping, will take another 1,576 days. And we will care for the needs and well-being of others, our friends and family, for 564 days. We'll spend 671 days bathing, grooming, and doing all other bathroom-related activities. And another 720 days will go to community activities, like religious and civic duties, charities, and taking classes. After we remove all those beans, this is what remains. This is the time that we have left. Time for laughing, swimming, making art, going on hikes, text messages, reading, checking Facebook, playing softball, maybe even teaching yourself how to play the guitar. So what are you going to do with this time? How much of it do you think you've already used up? And if you only had half of it, what would you do differently? What about half of that? How much time have you already spent worrying instead of doing something that you love? What if you just had one more day? What are you going to do today?
So you're going to create a vision for the next year. That's what you're going to do today. I love that they allocate time for TV.
Well, that could be just interpreted as brainless entertainment.
Right, screen time, what have you. Yes. But I do think it was probably made by someone in the entertainment industry because that got priority. So again, welcome back, and welcome to those of you who have straggled in. You haven't missed much, but I don't know what the link is, but if you go to Jelly Bean Time on YouTube, you will find it. It was at the top of the list when I searched that way, so it's worth the 2 minutes and 46 seconds. When I showed that to my daughter, who is 13, she said, "I'm so glad I'm not 15 yet." I thought, oh honey.
That's all they think about, is being 15.
Well, it starts with like giving you kind of 15, like starting your life at 15, right? So I haven't shown it to my son, who is 15. I wonder if that would put some fire under his motivation. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, so welcome back. As I said last time, the intention of this conversation is for you to create some individual awareness. This was a lot of generalities. Obviously, on Bainbridge, if you work on the island, you're not spending the 7,000 blah, blah, blah hours of commuting that you might be if you lived in LA. So we've got some wiggle room. It's not just that little stack that's at the end. But the fundamental piece is that our time here is finite. And I love the piece that he took that big handful out and said, how much time have you been spending worrying instead of doing anything else, really, even watching TV? So your own awareness of what your own impediments are, your own habits, your own places where you sabotage yourself, that's really individual. Mine is different than yours, I guarantee it. There are places that we have in common, and we'll talk a little bit about some of those today. But if you come out of here and go, oh, this is how it goes for me, then that's a time well spent. You've been on the planet for a little while. You've gone through the end of year and New Year's many times, for most of you, most of us. How do you, taking it out of the realm of the new year, how do you normally end stuff? It's kind of a funny question, I realize, but I would love for you to look at how do I normally end stuff, whether it be a relationship, a project, a process. How do you normally end stuff, Karen?
Well, there's an emotional feeling that's complete for me that I've come to recognize.
Okay.
But for simpler projects, I usually just ask the question, what just happened?
Okay. So you've got some intention around it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that starts the reflection.
Okay. Great. Anybody got anything different? Karen? Karen.
I like to have it really clear that it's closed.
Okay.
A conversation, if it's with another person, that it's, I like to have a finite, clear close. Wrap it
Bow is up.
up.
So I'm kind of the opposite. I'm like 95% done, and then I'm on to the next thing. So there's always this kind of lingering 5%. That way I won't miss out on anything, and just in case, and life's kind of fun. It's kind of messy sometimes, and gives me a good excuse. It's kind of an energy drain, to be straight about it. But that's mostly, like, if I'm not intentional, that's how I do it. When I did my coach training program, at the end, they do a lot of work on completion. And one of the questions my entire class was like, oh, it's so sad. We're all going to be, and I'm like, are you kidding me, people? We get to go out and do business now. We're still going to be friends. I mean, like, I had no space for that, for their process around something that was ending. And if I think about, I graduated in 1990, I got my first job in May, graduated from college in June, and got married the first time in August. Like, I just didn't have any relationship with completion. So I would invite you right now to look at what's your relationship to finishing stuff, because it is a source for energy or a drain of energy. So how do you normally finish stuff? There isn't a right way, but I would invite you to get what your normal way is and look at what the pros and cons are. What I know about folks like Karen is that sometimes there's a lot of time spending that bow on it so that it bleeds out into not getting to the next thing. So there's goodness on all sides, there's no right, wrong, but just notice what your primary relationship is, because that's an automatic. And if you even just look at it, it's funny, even in preparing for this, so I think I mentioned last time that ThinkWell for me is a relatively new company. We've been kind of ramping it for the last 18 months and really spent the last year hard at it. My JoyWork website is still up. That's that 5%. Like if you want to go look up JoyWork for Life, that's my former life prior to ThinkWell, and it's kind of hysterical. I have this whole other business, I have partners, I have all these new contracts. The business doesn't exist according to the state and the IRS and all these things. 95%, remember? But there's this 5%. So I will take on getting complete about that. But noticing what your automatic relationship is. And so how do you normally do the end of the year? How does it normally go for you between now and January 1st?
I have a ritual that I don't always manage to do, but it's decades long now where I like to just sit down and write. And a good chunk of the writing is looking back, and it's just kind of stream of consciousness. Some of it's lists because I like lists, and some of it's, more qualitative, and then I like to write out goals.
Nice.
I guess I'm kind of 80%, that's my 80% ritual.
Got it. That's great. So got a very intentional getting it all out, getting it kind of organized, and launching into the next year. Okay.
Pretty much after Christmas is when I sit down and I do I'm a business consultant, so I'm doing business planning. So what's going to happen next year? What is that going to look like? And what are the things that I want to do, what I want to happen next year? And I wait till after the end of the year to review what happened last year.
Okay. Great. Anybody else? Lynn?
Well, I separate business and personal. From a business standpoint, because I have an assistant and she's integral in how well the business, she's an integral part of the business. We go on a retreat and but we get all the numbers and everything, because our business is very number orientated. It tells us what the facts are. And we analyze the facts, but we also look at the comments our customers have given us, and we bring all that with us. And then we set our goals for next year's, for how much more course in production, but also what things, maybe classes we can take to help our customers better, how we can disseminate information better, how we can help our basically our clientele better. Maybe there's a new company, like there's something called green insurance. Really, there is something called green insurance. Is that something we need to concentrate on?
Okay. So a very formal process.
Yes.
Got it. Great, thanks. What about for personal?
Well, actually, I just don't touch that.
Got it. Thanks for saying so. No, it's...
Really, the reality is... that
Anybody else just not touch
It
it?
just kind of mumbles along.
Yeah, anybody else that resonate for? Yeah, thanks. Cindy?
I started something a couple years ago with my son, who's 12, where we get our calendars out and we look at the last, so this is about past, not future, but we look at the previous year. We get a nice card, like a Christmas card, and write down all the things, all good things that happened in the past year.
Nice.
He's
Little gratitude ceremony.
And we always end up with this just card covered with little, whatever it is, we went to a play or we went on a trip or we, just like a multitude of things.
How
It's really
great.
fun.
Yeah, really nice. Anybody
That's
else?
a really good idea.
Yeah, it's great.
Now I'm going to steal it.
Gratitude, yes.
These conversations can be a lot of R&D, rob and duplicate.
Well, it's funny because I worked with faith communities for so many years, and this is such a busy time that I didn't do my sit-down writing until New Year's Eve. My basic New Year's Eve is go to a movie and then go for a long, long walk on the beach and do a reflection and writing on New Year's Day. But one of the things I picked up doing many years ago, that no matter if I forget the writing, if I, bad year, good year, whatever, I choose a word at the beginning of the year and live with it all year long. Where does it show up in my life and other people's lives in the world, not in the world? What does it mean to me? What does it mean really in the dictionary? Just play with one word, like gratitude. This is where I started this campaign many, many years ago. I realized I had stopped writing thank you notes. And that, which I'm definitely above that already, but it brings, during the year when I realize I've totally lost my word, it brings me back to all the other intentions that I may have drifted away.
Nice, so it's kind of a touchstone as well. Great.
Like a card.
Yeah, nice. So look at how you normally do ends of things and see if there's anything you want to add in or take away for this year. Not from a place of should, but because it'll serve you. It'll serve you in powerfully completing this year and getting yourself ready to come into the next year. And we're talking again about a mark in time, but keep in mind you can reset, reorient, begin again, anytime, any day. I have a commitment about how much water I'm drinking, and as I drink what is probably my third cup of coffee, I realize, well, I haven't had it since my first cup this morning. So I can spend a lot of time agonizing over that, or I can get, as soon as I'm out of here, the first thing I do is drink some water. And then I have some catching up to do if I'm going to hit my commitment. That's it. That's all there is to do, and it works with small things and big things. So as part of our process last time, we made a list of all the things that we were not finished with or not happy with or didn't do what we said we were going to do. And I asked you to look at those lists in between. And for those of you who weren't here, just think about, is there anything you're holding against yourself in this moment in time that is unfinished from the year 2013?
She saw our list, didn't she?
Let's see, another 37 minutes. I love that you've got some humor around it. So, first of all, I assert that's not you holding it against yourself, it's some old story. Thank you notes. God, I hold them against myself because in my house you wrote thank you notes, and I just can't seem to get my head around. I don't know whether it's like some ancient resistance to my mother or what, but it literally is an act of God when I actually write one. So when you ever get one from me, know that it took something for me to actually get it to you. And it's not for lack of a good intention. I mean, I could tell you right now, I just finished this auction. Do you know how many thank yous I had to write? It's crazy. Had I thought that through, I might not have, no, I'm just kidding. So just notice what you're holding against yourself. And I want you to actually take a moment right now and look and see if there's anything you're unwilling to forgive. Today is Amnesty Tuesday. Is there anything that you are unwilling to let go of? Take a moment. And if you're willing, if there's something you're unwilling to let go of, I'm happy to take a couple of minutes and work with someone. I promise it'll be a gift to the whole group. And you don't have to. Okay, anybody have anything they're not willing to leave in 2013?
So what does not willing to leave it mean? You're not willing to forgive yourself?
Yeah.
For not having
Yeah, it doesn't mean like, if you didn't, I don't know, like I used the example last time about getting my MCC, Master Certified Coach. I fully intend to take that on, but I'm going to take it on from a place of unburdened versus I should have done it last year. I'm a piece of crud for not doing it and now I have to do it. It's a completely different conversation. So I'm going to bring the item over, but not all the associated how it should have gone's with it. I'm going to forgive those and leave those behind.
So an indicator would be, do you just feel super guilty?
Yeah, guilt is a great, guilt or shame. Don't want to say it out loud. And you don't have to, but like those are good indicators that you're still holding it against yourself.
So presumably everyone in this room has like 3 or 4 things in that list that is in our head right now we don't want to bring up. How would you?
I assert someone is brave enough to use their example. Yes, I don't know your name, I'm so sorry.
Kate.
Kate, it's nice to meet you.
I'm so glad this is being filmed.
Oh, and I should have said, any filming is really for me. Any pieces that you speak to won't end up available for public consumption. I apologize for not saying that at the very beginning. So thanks for bringing that into space.
Small fee.
That's how I'm going to make up that shortage.
Change my mind. So, I'll just thread it, one little thing from last week. When you asked the question, what do I want to get out of this? And what came up for me, I could make lists, but underneath the list, the emotional piece was to revisit, to relearn, to get clarity around that I am enough, I am sufficient. And so today, this morning, I'm doing my dishes and I'm going, oh, I shouldn't be running the water so much, I'm wasting water. And in that moment, I had a flash of, oh my God, I feel guilty about everything I do.
Yes.
I feel inadequate. So I've got mind knowledge, so I can say, I've been conducting this job search, I have great skills, and then there's the stuff underneath. There's the self-chatter, and it picks away. Oh, if you would have just worded this right, if you would have done this, if you had certification under your belt, if. So I don't know if that's an example that you're looking for.
Well, so first of all, it's a great conversation. Like we all walk around with a fundamental disempowering way of viewing life because we learned it. It's different, but it usually falls into the category of afraid I'm not lovable, I'm not enough, I have to prove myself, I have to deserve or earn in order to get or in order to have. There's probably a handful more, I'm just not. But the enough one is so huge. Good enough, smart enough, and so what it does is it constantly has you in this loop, and it's an endless, unwinnable loop, because I love that you said you have mind knowledge. You actually have neural pathways that are coded for not enough. And what's hilarious, not in a funny way, but hilarious, like, oh my God, you're kidding me, is that enough doesn't exist.
Right.
Enough doesn't exist.
When you get that goal.
It doesn't, it's an unwinnable game. Was that a question or just?
Yeah, question.
Yeah. Okay. Well, go ahead, because I have it, it's a conversation, so let's.
Yeah, some of the things, I'm finding that I have on my list are things that are recurring, or they need to be done
Yes.
and redone, or updated, or maintained, or some things I'm like, well, I could put that on that list, that I did do it, because I did, but then it's like, organized papers and got a filing system, but it's all gone to hell since I did it the first time. And now
so
I need to
great.
redo it, and so it's back on the list of need to do. And I think that one can particularly feed on the, it's not up because, it does have to be done again.
Right, right.
And so, not discounting the effort to begin with, and yet, dealing with maintenance, life maintenance, and stuff maintenance and things like that.
Dealing with the maintenance, I think, is just a killer.
Yeah.
Because it comes over, I mean, it's like having to do the dishes over and over and I hate doing the dishes, so guess what happens in my house? Because I'm the only one who can do the dishes, because my husband can't do the dishes.
Yes, you can.
And I look at them every day,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and it's not just the fact of the dishes. I assert there are maintenance things in your lives that you all do, and you don't even think about it because it doesn't have any energy for you. Karen?
I think another thing on that list are relationships.
But-
When you were saying things that you can't let go of, that you feel guilty about a relationship
Right.
with people in your life.
So, what happened to my green pen?
At least for me, that's.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. So without something specific, so actually I'm gonna set that aside for just a minute because I do want to come back to Kate's piece about being enough. So if you have a presence to what your repeating conversation is, the first thing to do is get that it's an interpretation, and that it's an unwinnable, fundamentally disempowering conversation. You cannot win at proving you are enough. And left to its own devices, operating, just throwing bombs at the dishes time, saying, by the way, you shouldn't be using so much water. It's this pervasive complaint. And again, it's just an energy suck. And we typically think to address that, we'll say the opposite. You know, I'm gonna have an affirmation every morning, I am enough. Unfortunately, all that does is reinforce that enough exists. It doesn't exist. You reinforcing it with an affirmation might make you feel good in that moment, but it's fundamentally giving honor to that enough conversation. You're actually going to have to just set it down. The first thing is to notice it. Oh, there's that conversation again. And I'm going to do the dishes. Is there something I want to do differently about the water in this moment? Nope, I'm all good. Like, you are going to have to trust that you can just set it down. And it takes that practice of setting it down. You know, it's no different than I work very closely with a chiropractor because I've got, anyway, it doesn't matter why. But I'm supposed to always be thinking about my posture, right? And I am better at it than I was 2 years ago. But left to my own devices, I'm mostly like this. And if Julie were here, she would put her hand on my back and, you know, she would gently remind me, oh yeah, like if I let my shoulders go down a little bit, life is better on so many levels. So all I can do is be in process setting it down. All I can do is put structures in place to remind myself. How are you going to notice those pervasive conversations? And I think we talked about last week, one of the ways to notice first is the physiology will come first. You all know what guilt and shame feels like in your body. Tune into it. Tune into it as access to setting it down. Allow for you to be in process. Especially when you're talking about some of these maintenance things, they aren't going to go away. You might get better at managing them, or you might figure out different systems. Or maybe you have somebody come in and do your dishes. Right? Like at the end of the day, you get to choose. But if you're choosing to not do it and feel bad about it, that's on you. Choose powerfully. I often don't do the dishes after dinner. I am not a night person. By about 8 o'clock, you are lucky to get coherent language out of me. I'm tired. I would rather get up at 6 and do the dishes any day, any time. You want to know when I do the dishes afterward? There are a few friends that I feel like it makes a difference if the dishes are done. Not the best reason, but it is a structure of support sufficient to make sure that my kitchen gets clean. So choose what you're up to and then empower it. No fair choosing and beating yourself up for it. You know, it's a little bit sneaky. Oh, I know I shouldn't, but I'm going to anyway, and I'll feel bad about it. Really? But we do it all the time. We live that way. Oh, I know I shouldn't eat this bowl of ice cream, but I'm going to. But I'm going to feel bad about it all day tomorrow. That's like lose, 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 lose. I'm going to love this ice cream. Yay, ice cream! I'll work out a little more tomorrow, or I won't. You're adults, grown-ups. You feeling bad about something that you know you shouldn't do, like choose to do it or don't. Those shoulds are most of the time externally put upon you. And they may or may not have anything to do with what you choose. So, going back to what you can't forgive yourself for, I assert there's some fundamental place that you're not willing to let go of. Some fundamental place that you should be different. If you look at that list, well, I hit all my financials, but I really should have paid off all the debt. So I'm not allowed to feel happy about life until I pay off all the debt. I guarantee you holding that against yourself is not going to get you to paying off debt any faster, and it's going to make life very unhappy in the meantime. You not forgiving you is pointless waste of energy. And it's going to get in the way of the vision stuff we're going to talk about. So if there's anything left on the list, I would ask you to look at it and really get to what's underneath it. Like one of the questions you might ask is, who said so? What am I so attached to this?
So what in situations where, like, if you had the foresight, that you have the hindsight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, this is like not me, but I was just told a story the other day. There's a woman who rolled her car on her son because she didn't have the foresight to see how, the ground was very soft, and then half the car sunk and the car went right over the top. You know,
Oh my
something like
God.
that.
Right.
I mean, like, that's a huge picture of not being able to get rid of something.
Yeah.
But something happened because you didn't have the foresight. you know?
Right.
Or, and then there are other things, there are smaller things where, something gets lost because you didn't have the foresight to, like, whatever, be where it was, or, leave it at home, or something, whatever. Maybe your home gets burgled because you forgot to, lock the window, something
Right.
like that, that you still can't get rid of in your.
Well, so what I want to separate is things that feel really, really, really crappy from holding it against yourself. Like, you're allowed to feel all the stuff there is to feel, the disappointment, the heartbreak, the sadness, the anger. There's a lot of feelings to feel, but that's different than holding it against yourself. And I think particularly in the example with the car rolling, right, that's probably something you need to get some additional support with. Like, that's why they have therapeutic support. There are trained professionals who can help you navigate that grief, because that's massive grief. But, holding it against yourself because you forgot to lock a window is not going to make you remember. It might. Like, we tell ourselves, if I hold this against myself, I'll remember to lock windows from now on, and then I won't ever get robbed again. Well, this doesn't work that way. Life happens. You're on this planet with other human beings who are out there making mistakes. Not just you making the mistakes, they are too. And so I love the question, because we have this story like, I should have known. Well, you didn't. Like, the fact is you didn't. Even if you did. I mean, I don't know how it happens for you, but in my household all the time, it'll show up like, oh yeah, I did know that somewhere in this brain of mine. But my brain's full. And I forgot in the moment that it was important. I'm a human. We are imperfect by design. It's part of what makes us glorious and creative and wonderful as well. You gotta take it all. It is a complete package. So I want to come back to your question about relationships. There might be something to clean up. Like, maybe you're holding it against yourself because you aren't doing the right thing. And I don't mean the right thing because Alyse said this is the right thing, but like the right thing because your body tells you, oh, I have to have this really hard conversation with Leslie and I don't wanna, But I'm not going to be able to forgive myself until I say, whatever it is, I'm really sorry. Or this didn't go like I wanted it to go. Or. Laura?
Can I throw a relationship one out there
Yeah.
that I'd love your help with?
Sure.
It's the one thing that occurred to me that I'm holding against myself, even though I sort of can justify pieces of it to myself.
And to be honest, that's often how it goes. Like, I'm most of the way, but this last little bit I'm not giving up on. So thank you for bringing it in.
So I have a lot of guilt surrounding not spending enough time with my son since I started working. I feel like he's always neglected by clients who need something, and what they need can't wait, and what he needs can't, like, my financial world doesn't crumble if I ignore him for an hour while I deal with a work problem.
Yeah.
And that's a really tough one because I feel like I've missed a huge chunk of 7 to 9 because of trying to launch things and make things go just right.
Thank you for bringing that in. It is so frequent that we feel guilt about, like if we ask what our highest commitment is to our kids, to our spouses, to our families, and yet we're out there in the world operating, like if a video camera were watching us, they would see that our actions might not be lining up there. So I bring you back to this piece, like you're in process. You get to be in process. You get to not know how to navigate being a mom that works and is trying to build a business up and ramp something up and have a 7 or 8 or 9-year-old son. You get to know that. And I would actually ask you to forgive yourself like you would forgive, like if your best friend came to you, and I'm gonna over dramatize this, although maybe not so much. Your best friend came to you and said, in tears, beating herself up about how terrible she is. And I didn't do this, and I missed this event, and I told him I'd be on time, and I didn't get there, and his part was already over. What would you say to her?
Probably tell her that her child loved her anyway and would forgive her.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe work on doing better from now on.
Yeah. So you too. You gotta clean it up though. Like if there's something in the space, you feeling guilty and showing up in the relationship, guilty, actually puts something, and especially with children, this is a little bit of a, I normally don't put a consulting hat on, but I will in just this one little place. Kids are great BS detectors. They are amazing. They are also incredibly resilient. You have to be straight with them about what's going on. You can't pretend that it's anything other than what it is. And so there may be something to come and say, you know, honey, I am so sad that I missed this. And I'm really sorry. And it's not what I want to have happen for us. Like you've got, you know, so there may be some cleaning up to do.
And he always forgives me, that's the thing.
And he will.
Always.
He will.
Yeah.
And you holding it against yourself actually puts something in the connection that isn't necessary. It actually isn't in service of it.
I would say too, I mean, this is like going into the, so I had a lot of guilt for many years about, you know, going back to work when my baby was 6 weeks old, you know, and at the time, it seemed like it was working. You know, the nice thing is my sister was there to be with him for a while. And there, you know, there were some, it was managed reasonably well, and yet I always felt like I had missed out. And so maybe what you're doing is, it's maybe not so much about what your son is missing, it's what you're missing. And, you know, and you don't have to put in time with your kids. You know, it's not about how many hours today did you spend with your kid, but it's like, how did they feel about that 10 minutes that you did spend with them, you know what I mean? So I think there's, maybe to clarify, are you missing it or is he missing it? You know, who do you, who are you fixing this with?
Yeah. Thanks, Leslie. So, at the end of the day, there might be some different behaviors you want to take on, and I mean this broadly, not just for Laurel. Like, there might be something you want to do different. But you can do that separate from the shame, guilt, holding it against yourself. Like, you've got to forgive first. You don't have to, but it actually is taking energy away from you putting your next intention in place. The last piece, and again, it's pretty specific, but it actually shows up in all of our relationships. It's not just with our kids, but it has everything to do with how present you are in any given moment. You at 100% available is priceless. And we're often not. We are often chewing on something else, playing with something else, trying to do too many things at once. So the degree to which you're willing to do one thing at a time, you'll experience a higher quality of life. And it's counterintuitive because we are, I mean, how often do you hear, oh, I'm a great multitasker, just bring it, I can do it all. Well, you can't. Brain scientists say, no, you can't. Brain scientists say you're doing one thing. You might have some other things on autopilot, but you're doing one thing. So you might look, as a practice to unhook some of this stuff, you might spend some time every day or every morning looking at how it went. Like, oh, how did this go today? What do I want to do differently tomorrow, or today if you do it in the morning? You can have a daily intention that's in line with your broader commitment. And just bringing yourself present to that will actually shift how it goes when the work emergency comes up. Because, you know, again, to use your example, like some of them are emergencies and they can't wait, and other times they can. But we get into the habit of just being responsive. And so it's just keeping present to, oh yeah, this is what I'm up to right now. And just be clear, this is a very long conversation. We're not going to button it all up in you know, all of this. This completion work ain't light. It's not accidental that it has to be taught. We don't get taught this. Well, some of us did, but I spent a year learning it. And I reinforce it all the time with my clients. Okay, so does that feel complete for the moment, Laurel? Is that? So, vision. For those of you who have your visions with you, get them out. For those of you who don't, would you write a couple of sentences about what you see you want for next year? As a visionary, do you play small or play big? Typically, we fall in one category or the other. We play small, meaning I'm going to increase my sales by 1%, I'm going to take an extra day off, you know, like very reasonable, you know how you're going to get there, you plan. It's not just that you plan to succeed, but like you're like, in my comfort zone, this is what I can get to, and that's all I'm willing to say out loud that I want. And then you have kind of the other end of the continuum, which is like, I'm going to climb Mount Rainier, I'm going to build houses in 2 different states, and by the way, another country, and I'm going to triple my business, and like we take the visioning exercise as an opportunity to dream as big as possible. And neither, there's no right wrong, just notice where you tend to fall. Because what you want is a vision that is a bit of a stretch goal, and you can tell because it makes you a little uncomfortable, like, yikes. But it's not so big that you've already set yourself up to fail. Like, I guarantee you, if I stood here in front of you and said, I'm going to climb Mount Rainier next year, it would be a big fat lie. Even if I said it with a lot of intention, it'd be a big fat lie. Well, yeah, it'd be a big fat lie. So, listen for what your normal way is and have a look at your vision again. And is there anything that you didn't want to say out loud that you want to add? Or is there anything you need to scale back? Maybe Mount Rainier is 5 years out instead of this year. Or maybe it's not really on the list. I want you to be unreasonably reasonable. It's a little bit of an oxymoron.
I'm sorry.
I want you to be unreasonably reasonable. In other words, I don't want you to set yourselves up to fail. I don't want you to get, sometimes we use our visions to evidence our not enoughness. Look, I said I was going to do this, this, and this, and this, and I didn't do it. Look, see? Are we evidence that, oh, I don't deserve to be happy because I didn't do what I said I was going to do? Like whatever our fundamental context is, sometimes it takes over our visioning process. So I want you to be uncomfortable, like, ooh, that's going to take something different than what I've been doing, but I'm going to, but it's not so reasonable that I'm like, it's going to be all handled. So it needs to be a stretch. So the next piece I'd like you to do is look at what are all the things you already have going for you. It might be skills, resources, knowledge. Like what do you already have that are going to contribute to you achieving that vision? I want you to get at least 5 to 7 things down, and over the course of this next week, I want you to keep adding to it.
Say that again.
I'd like you to capture 5 to 7 things that you already have in your corner to achieve that vision. It might be skills, it might be some momentum, it might be some business you already know is coming your way, it might be some relationships you know are going to support you. And then I want you to write, and again, start with 3 to 5, but keep working on it. What are some things you're going to need to get handled in order to achieve what you want? It's okay. So the flip side is, what are some things you don't already have that you know you're going to need to achieve your vision? The next list is, what is going to get in your way? What's going to get in your way? Great, me too. I'm going to get in my way too. I'm going to forget, and I'm going to get busy taking a bunch of phone calls, and life will be really full, and and I'll get to end of next year and still won't have my MCC. So I'll be in my way. What do you see for you, Lena? How will you get in your way?
Just because I get so busy that I just let the other stuff drop.
Okay.
Because it's always the clients, I get phone calls, and a lot of it's crisis, so I'm always working under crisis mode.
Got it. So staying in crisis mode. Anybody else relate to that? We do that. And you know what's funny about it? It actually is a little of an adrenaline rush. There's some endorphins that get released, like But you know what? If you drive your car around in 5th gear all the time, what happens to it?
It's really good mileage.
Until the engine goes, right? It does get really good mileage.
That speed.
Yeah. Well, and you fool yourself that that's the speed, that yes, you get used to it and it starts to feel normal.
Right.
But physically it actually isn't. There's a whole conversation about cortisol and there's another word. It was in my head, now it's gone. It'll come back. But anyway, it actually creates a certain amount of depletion. And then you wonder why you're so tired all the time. I can't come up with that word. It begins with an A. Oh, your adrenal glands go shot. Thank you. I knew I'd come up with it. So anyway, how will you stop you? Anybody else? Procrastinate. I was just going to say, I don't want to. I know I should, but I don't want to.
Pressure to do something else.
It's like wanting a big thing and then like not wanting to do all the steps.
To do the steps to get it.
Things in
Yep.
order or time that they need to be done.
Yeah. Competing priorities, like pressure to do something else. Something else comes and it's screaming at you.
Greediness about not wanting to let things go, wanting it all.
Say more about that.
Oh, just when opportunities come up.
Yes. FOMO, fear of missing out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love that.
Totally. I can start things like nobody's business. I can. I'm good at it. People call me all the time to start stuff. I am not your take it over the plate girl. I need structure and support to take stuff over the plate. That is why I did not do this auction by myself. It is why I had a co-chair.
That's why they have closers in baseball.
That's why they have closers in baseball. That's right. Okay, so these are what you're going to work on between now and next time, because it's going to be the foundation of our conversation for next time. Because next time is all about what are the structures you need to have next year be an incredibly powerful year. So What you're gonna take away and mull on are these 3 questions. What do I already have in my corner? What do I need to put in place that I don't already have? And where am I gonna stop? What will you all know what your habits are. What will predictably get in my way? Without shame, like just name it like it is. Like I got it, you need starters. You want me on your team if you're gonna start something. I will get people motivated and excited, I'll get them a plan, like I am that person on the planet. You don't want me leading your team to finish it, to take it over the plate, right? Like, so there's no judgment, value judgment, like know what those things are for you. Because it's only with that kind of, like really energetically flat, like no should, good, bad, right, wrong, but just like, hey, this is who I am in the world, then you know how to build up what structures you need. If I were trying to implement Infusionsoft by myself, we would be having this exact conversation a year from now. No context would be entered. I might have watched part of a video. The guy would have called me and given up on me to set up the appointment to do the setup. Even though I'm committed to it, I think it's valuable, it aligns with our business strategy, even though it's all the right things. So I can be shame myself about that, or I can just be like, yep, I'm so glad my business partner Judy's handling that. Because it's not Alyse's domain. So you're going to be asking yourself those questions. And then I want you to look at the different areas of your life. Again, this is a business conversation, but what do you want for your significant relationship? Who do you want to be as a parent or child? My mom had a health crisis this summer. Like it totally shifted my job, what I intend about our relationship. It was kind of on autopilot. No harm, no foul, right? I mean, we've been mother and daughter for 40 plus years, moving closer to 50. So, our relationships get on autopilot. So it's okay. Just look at, is it going the way you want it to go? Look at your environments. Look at your other commitments. Because this can actually be a much broader conversation, and the degree to which you're actually willing to name what you're committed to or what your intentions are in a broad way, because guess what? You don't operate, this is Alyse at work, this is Alyse the mom, like you're not compartmentalized. You are an integrated human being, and when you operate like you're compartmentalized, it causes things to break, and then you're like, oh, this didn't go like I wanted. So I actually invite you to create the vision that is fully formed for next year.
Well, one thing I noticed when I was doing the list, I was noticing what things were, and then I started to say, what's the relevance? How important is this one versus that one? And then what are the consequences if I don't do this or I do this? And then once I made that decision, I got the importance of it. I could take the action and start doing it.
Nice.
And I got rid of a lot of things that just weren't really important or relevant.
Nice.
So I think that's kind of a loop, because as I started working on things, I found more things that I noticed and came back. So it's not there's no beginning. I guess there's a beginning, but there doesn't seem to be an end to it yet. So.
Well, and there's only a beginning because we say so. I mean, whether you own it or not, you're all in process. We're all in the process.
Yeah.
So thank you, Bill. That's great. Relevance, what was it? Relevance and importance. Or no, consequences.
Well, first you've got to notice it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's what's the relevance and what consequences if you do it or don't do it, then take the action.
Got it. Thanks. So next week, come back. We're going to spend a lot of time on structures. One of the structures for you to think about is, and there's a little flyer back here, but every beginning of the year I do a 2-month session. It's an hour by phone each week with me or one of my business partners. They're topical. They're not coaching, because you can't do that with the number of people that are on the call. There may be a little coaching, but the primary offering is to provide you tools and awareness and a place to at least think about what you're up to once a week for an hour. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, you can grab a flyer or send me an email. And next week, we're going to speak really specifically about some structures, so that in principle you come out of next week with some semblance of a plan for you to launch into in January. Any questions? I'm sure we are at time.
We are.
Excellent. Oh, 103. Yay! Thank you all. The participation was wonderful. I appreciate the conversation.